Very
Hare Krishna
nice.
Mataji,
Okay.
Dandavat
So
Pranam,
let's
Jai
see.
Srila
I don't have the
Prabhupada.
reading label. That's very good. So good to see you, Sukomal Radhi Mataji, Sutapa Mataji, Viraha Bhav Dasi, and I'm pretty sure Renu Pyadika is also with her there. And we have Vaishana Mataji who's connecting to the audio, so she can't obviously hear what I'm saying. And let me check if we are there on Facebook as well. And we are. Okay, fantastic. Dilip Bhai Prabhu is there. Danvat pranams to you and Danvat pranams to you, Vidyavadu Devi Dasi Mataji. Okay, so it's 1 minute past 7 o'clock. So I think we should just get started after these short prayers to the spiritual master.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Marandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastute Tapt Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So welcome to
Hare
our
Krishna
class,
Mataji, Dandat
and
Pranam.
on Bhagavad Gita we are continuing on, and we have, if we do our verse today, then we have one more verse to go before we complete the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's been a long ride, but took us almost a year, a little more than a year, to cover the two chapters of Bhagavad Gita. But of course, we digressed in the middle, and we did 17 and 16 also. So we have a little more than two chapters that we covered, and which is fantastic, considering that if you just do a little bit every day, and which is what we were doing almost every day, um, and then it starts to show results. Although it might appear that we are just doing one verse of Bhagavad Gita and a few days in a week, but over a period of time, we see that it has its own effect on that. And the beauty of Bhagavad Gita is that as we delve deeper and deeper into the Bhagavad Gita, then more and more gems we start to collect more and more gems out of the same scripture. And to collect the gems, as they say, even from the sea, you can't just be swimming on the surface of the sea and expect to find pearls, right? If you want to get pearls out of a sea, you have to really go deep inside the sea. And that's what we also need to do as you go deeper into the Shastras. And so that's why we have to keep on diving into Bhagavad Gita again and again, again and again, again and again. And the guarantee is that every time you dive into it, you're going to get something nice, right? Which is not the case in the material world with material things, right? You think that you like this very much, and I like this ice cream, it was so good, let me order one more. And the second one doesn't taste as good as the first one. So that's the material nature. but with spiritual nature because it's unending. So the pleasure that you're going to get out of Bhagavad Gita is also an unending pleasure that we get. So without much ado, let's just dive in then into the Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you a quick question. That yesterday we did verse number 70, and what was the metaphor that was used by Krishna while he's explaining things to Arjuna? So let's see, what do we have here? So take out your pads and get ready and punch in the data, punch in the information over there. Okay, so and let me just adjust here a little bit. And okay, and let me see the chat that we have. And yeah, so yeah, don't give me, let's see, don't give me the rivers and the ocean, but give me what was this comparison that he was making. Give me the whole thing. Give me 100% answer. There was ocean, there was river. Yeah, okay. Answers are coming in. Very good. And those of you who are watching us on Facebook can also put some answers over there. Right, and yesterday we did not talk about the wind. Yesterday's verse did not talk about the wind and the boat. Yesterday's lesson talked about river and the ocean. And river, Arjuna says, is the material desires, and ocean is like the mind or the consciousness of Krishna conscious person who's not agitated, and it stays that like that. And Sutapa says, ocean is like a steady mind, and yes, it is. It should not get turbulent, right? Although Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balvadrinam tasyanam nigraham manye vayu eva sudushkaram. So he says it's very difficult, it's stubborn, it's obstinate, right? It's turbulent. There's turbulence in the mind. And what causes turbulence in the mind? A little bit of information that you gather from the outside world. And if you have a desire that connects with what you saw, then you are in deep trouble. And we saw that somebody was in deep trouble yesterday. And who was that? Who was in deep trouble? Let's see. And yes, we got quite a few. Ajamilas on the chat room. Yes, answers, not Ajamilas in the chat room. So yeah, so you see a live example of, what happens. And we have to remember, and we also said that as the ocean does not cross its boundaries, right? It might go a little further and it goes back, goes further, but doesn't really go and, go anywhere that it likes, right? Although it's so powerful. So imagine, although it's so very powerful, but still the ocean knows how to stay in its limit, right? So, and I'm getting some answers here on the Facebook also. Yes, that's correct answers. So we have to remember that when we were talking about the various kinds of energies of the Lord, right? We talked about the spiritual energy, we talked about the material energy, and then we talked about an energy which is spiritual, but it's also called marginal energy. Why? Because it's in the margin between the spiritual and the material, and it can sway in either direction. It can go and fall into the material, or it can go and be elevated towards the spiritual, right? So who is that marginal energy? What is that marginal energy that we have, which is, on the boundary? Exactly. And let's look for the answers that are coming up on the chat room. Archana says Jiva soul. And let's see if there are other answers to that. The marginal energy, Tatastha Shakti, something which has this tendency to fall into the material ocean and or be elevated into the spiritual. And Archana says Jiva soul, and she is correct, because Jiva soul is the energy, right? And which is spiritual in nature, but has a tendency to fall and think because of false ego that I'm this body, and that causes the whole 9 yards of trouble that we get. So it's very, very important for us to know the boundaries and not to go on the other side, know the margin that we have, stay within the spiritual consciousness and not get driven away And these urges of from the material nature, they come with a very, very, huge and a powerful force. And that's why he's saying pramati balva dranam, for the mind. He's saying that urges of the mind, urges of the senses, includes the mind. So it's very, very strong. And not only is it strong, it's also very obstinate. So obstinate means that one time you just slap your mind and say, no, don't bring that thought again. After some time, it'll just, bring it again and will stay there no matter how hard you try, right? Unless we use something of a higher level. And as it is said, Albert Einstein had said that in order to solve a problem, you need a consciousness. In order to solve a problem, you need a consciousness which is higher than the consciousness that created the problem in the first place. Which means that if you have a consciousness of a fifth grader and you created some problem, you need the consciousness of at least a sixth grader or higher to solve that problem. Okay? So we need to have a consciousness which is a higher level. And that is why we have this hierarchy where it says lowest is the material nature and above the material nature are the senses. Above the senses is the mind, which is also a subtle sense. And then above the mind is intelligence. Above the intelligence is the soul. And that is the part. That is where the boundary is. All the way up to the intelligence is where you have the material world. So that's why Vaishana Mataji, humans are in the material realm, the body. And then you cross the boundary and you go over to the spiritual, which is the jiva soul, right? And so above the mind and intelligence is the soul, and above the soul is the super soul, right? So if the mind is creating some problems, if the mind has created a problematic situation, then intelligence has to come in to sort it out. If the intelligence is all messed up, and it can get messed up if we do hayato vishyan pumsan, if we do too much of indulgence in the material energy, then that can happen to us. So you go to a higher level. If the intelligence is also not there, then the soul has to take over and control and command. And if the soul is also waylaid because of the desires that the soul has got, then only super soul can control the soul. And the super soul is very generous. And what the super soul does is that it's uptrishta anumanta. It's just, overseer. It's just seeing, and then it is giving you the permission. It's only when we turn towards the super soul and say, okay, fine, now here, I'm in deep mess. And can you please solve my problem? And then he'll take, if you allow him to take your life in his hands, then he will take your life in his hands. And when Krishna really takes lives, and he does that, he takes the lives of the devotees in his hands. And sometimes you might think that, like, why are all these bad things happening to such a good devotee? He's going through so much of trouble. And so these are us. We are looking at the situation with a material eye. And although if you ask the devotee who's going through all this trouble, inside he must be feeling so much better, right? For example, if a devotee suffers huge losses in his wealth and fortune, right? To others, it might look like, oh, Krishna took away everything. And but to the devotee himself, he might be thinking, oh, it was already such a big bother to manage all my fortune. Now I'm free to dedicate myself to Krishna consciousness. So, but the kind that we are all here in this material world, and we are here because of our desires. We have been put here, a desire to enjoy. We have been put here. So it becomes difficult for us, and we get carried away by all this huge amount of big data that our senses gather and keep on presenting to the mind constantly and incessantly. And that is what the verse from yesterday said, that incessantly the rivers pour water into the oceans. Similarly, incessantly, something or the other is always being presented. Can you give me some examples of incessant things that came into your life, into your mind today, that were presented from the external? So let's see how many of you are going to bear and tell us what are some of the things that come to you from the outside world. From outside. So what is it that causes the worry? What is it that you see outside that causes you the worry? From the outside world, you see something and that thing agitates your mind. Some examples. Okay, so you see the COVID virus outside and you see people suffering and that agitates the mind. So Tapa says that people's bad behavior, they're not humble, that agitates your mind, right? People not maintaining the social distance, says Aruni Mataji. That agitates us. So you see, all these eyes are gathering all these pieces of information, mind is analyzing, and then in that process, it gets agitated, right? So this turbulence is always there in our life, and actually, when you see most of the movements that you see in this material world are actually turbulent, right? So tell me, what are some of the movements that you see around you? And Sukumal Radhimataji, are you okay? All right. What are some of the turbulences? Some turbulent movements. Look at the nature. Tell me some turbulent movements that you see in the material nature. Turbulent motions. Turbulence. Yeah, be more specific, Sukumal Radhimataji. Yeah, a little bit more. Give me more specific of turbulence. I'm talking about movements. Movements. Like movement, like in movement, like this, and not in the other movements, not in a civil rights movement or freedom movement. I'm talking about general. Yeah. So the first got it. She says the damaging wind, the tornadoes, right? That's turbulent, right? The rivers, they are turbulent, right? So these are some of the turbulences that you see around around from the material. So a lot of the movements in this world, when you see, rivers, water flowing, it is turbulent. If you open your tap, there's turbulence there. So there can be turbulence everywhere. And actually some of the air conditioners and fans, they will talk about, how much of turbulence they can bring. That is, they can give you um, people are driving crazy. Yeah, so there's a psh of air that is around you, and that's the natural turbulence around you. So there is turbulence. So we have to understand that around us in life there will be turbulence, and we have to learn how to live in this material world, which is full of turbulence. Turbulence is inside, as Sukomal Radhe Mataji said, worries, right? We have turbulence inside and there is turbulence outside. So everywhere there is turbulence, turbulence, and turbulence like that, right? So let's look up the verse for today and see where does that take us. So let me start sharing my screen here with you, and we'll take it from there. And if somebody can confirm that they can see this, can you please write a yes or no? Yeah, mostly turbulence is in the mind. That is correct. And can I get a yes for whether you can see this screen? Somebody will tell me. Can you see chapter number 2, Bhagavad Gita, or no? No, you can see. Okay, so you're seeing something else, then that means. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again. You wonder why it did not show to you. Okay, and do you? Now you can see. Okay, very good. So, okay, I think there was a delay there. All right. So let's look at the verse for today, 71. And so it's all got to do with, how the answering the question that Arjuna had asked a few verses ago. And that was Sita Pragyasya Kya Bhasha, and how does he sit, right? And then, so yesterday we were talking about Apuryamanam, right? Achilam pratishtham samudra apam pravishanti yadvat tat kama kamaya pravishanti sarve na shanti mapnoti yakama kami. So it said that if you have desires, then you're not going to get peace if you try to fulfill your desires, because the material desires are like a fire, and it's a fire blazing, it's hungry, it wants you to feed. And what can you feed to a fire? You give it some ghee. And if you put ghee on a fire, what happens? The fire becomes even bigger. When you pour more ghee, it becomes even bigger. So, trying to satisfy your desires is not going to really help in satisfying the desire, right? And there was that verse which comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, and it says, Satyam Dishatti Artito Artitam Nirnam, right? And it says that, the Lord, to his devotee, the devotee comes and asks for something material, right? And if the Lord knows that this person is asking me for this material thing, and if I give this thing to this person, he's going to ask for more, right? Ask for more, and then from one little more to another little more, it becomes a big more, and then the demand keeps on increasing, and you have no idea as to what you can do. And in that context, I told you the story of a brahmachari whose spiritual master had come and visited him and had asked him to read the Bhagavad Gita. And while he used to read the Bhagavad Gita, and he was living in very poor conditions, and he had a dhoti, and he used to just, wash it, hang it outside, and spend the time reading the Bhagavad Gita. And he used to hear the, sounds of mice moving around, until one day he found that, the mice had also eaten into his dhoti. So while he was, washing the dhoti, he realized he was hanging it outside. And then his neighbor saw that, and he said, "Oh wow, your dhoti, like some animal is biting it." And he said, "Yeah, I'm just terrified. I'm in trouble by these mice, and they don't even let me. They make so much of noise in the home. They don't let me read the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, now they're eating into my clothes as well." So he said, "That's very easy. You could get a cat." And so the guy goes and gets a cat. And so the cat does the job. The cat was very deft and swiftly, the cat took care of the mice in the house. But then, as this guy was sitting down and reading the Bhagavad Gita, again, there was now a different sound. It was of the cat. And so the sound of the cat was disturbing. So he goes back to the neighbor and says, "What do I do with this cat? Now this cat is disturbing me." And so the neighbor says, "You know what? I think the cat is hungry." So what does the cat eat? The cat will not eat roti and chapati. Cat needs milk. How do you get the milk? So he said, "Okay, fine. I don't have money to buy milk." So he went outside and started begging for milk. And then some one person, he did that for days together. And of course, his Bhagavad Gita reading was suffering because of that. So some person took pity on him and said, "Okay, I'm going to donate a cow to you so that you don't have to go from door to door to get the milk. Here's a cow." So he gave him the cow, and he brings the cow home, and he's very happy. But now the cow needs food. Cow has to be cleaned. Cow has to be taken out for grazing. It has to be milked and so on. And he doesn't know what to do. He goes back to his neighbor, his advisor, and he says, "What do I do?" He said, "That's very easy. You have to focus on your studies. You just get a wife and she'll take care of everything." And so this man then gets married. And when he gets married, the wife comes and she takes care of everything in the home. And then, of course, there is a child in a year or so. And within that period of time, the spiritual master returns to the village back, and he comes to his student and he says, "Okay, how is it going? How is the Bhagavad Gita reading going?" And he's like, "What? I forgot." Right? So this is what happens from one desire to another desire to another desire. It starts with good intentions. He wanted to have some peace and quiet to be able to read the Bhagavad Gita. But then the kind of advisors that he was surrounded with, the association that he was having, people were giving him all the wrong kind of advice over there. So we also need a person who is going to guide us properly. And so if if God knows that one desire is going to lead to another big desire and you'll be lost like this brahmachari, then he will not fulfill that material desire in the first place. So we should be surrendered to the will of the Lord and just take it as it comes and accept it as the will of the Lord. And that once we have that surrender to the Lord and take everything as his mercy, that is when peace is going to come to us. Otherwise, it's not going to come. The agitations that are created by us, which includes us as the soul, because we started the desire, so we are the original cause of all our problems. And so it has to be solved by something which is at a higher level. So you have to go to Super Soul or Supreme Personality of Godhead to get these things sorted out. Okay. So now for today's verse that we have, it says, now it's talking about, so how are you going to get the peace? So yesterday we said, if you try to fulfill your desires, you're not going to get peace. So today's verse is going to tell us the solution, right? So it says, Vihaya kaman yah sarvan pumansh charati nihispriraha nirmamo nirankaraha sashantim adhigacchati. So what does it mean? Vihaya means giving up. So now we have to give up something. Kaman, that is what you have to give up. Material desires for sense gratification, those have to be given up, right? And yaha is who, sarvan, all, puman, a person, charati, lives or moves around, nisprihaha, this is a very important word, nisprihaha. So, or nihi, right? Sprihaha, it becomes from sandhi, it becomes nihi. Sprihaha, desireless. So sprihaha means desires and nihi means without. So nihaspriha means desireless. Nirmamaha, again there is a nir there, nirmamaha, without a sense of proprietary, right? So whenever there's a ni there, it means there's a negation there. So without, right? Without is like less, over here is the without part of it, without desire. Nir ahankara, another anai has come here, ni, nirankahara, without false ego. Saha, he, shantim, perfect peace, adhigacchati, is that person attains. So now is the time for us to go to the word meaning round. So just take out your notepads and tell me, what is the Sanskrit for desireless? Okay, so you know what? I can't help with the audio because my internet connection is acting today, so I apologize for that. We'll have to live with that disturbance. And nihisprihaha is what you're saying, is one who's desireless. And what is to attain something? What is that? To attain something? Adhigacchati, adhigacchati, adhigacchati. Very nice. Adhigacchati. Now, interesting thing I wanted to just bring up over here is that gach. Does anybody know what does gach mean in Sanskrit? Gach. Gacchati, gacchata, gachanti, gacchasi, gacchata, gachat, gacchami, gacchava, gacchama. Gacchati. Anybody hear the word gacchati or gach in Sanskrit? Gach means to walk. Yeah. Gacchati means to walk. So there's gacchati, but then what is this adhigacchati? So there seems to be some sort of a gacchati inside adhigacchati. Now let's go back and look at the English meaning. What does it mean to attain, right? To get something. To attain is adhigacchati. So you, and then when you attain something, you're said to have reached your goal, right? So what does reaching out mean? When you're reaching a goal, there's some sort of a movement that is, subtly indicated there. You were here, and then you reached your goal, right? For Krishna, the pot of curd was high up there, and he reached out and he got it, and you attained it, right? So there's a little bit of a movement there that you are from state A, where you didn't have peace, and you reach a state B where you have got peace, right? So from one state, you have moved to another state. So there's a gacchati, there's a movement, sense of a movement there in that particular word over there, okay? So let's see. What do we have here for the translation? All right, so in the translation by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain the real peace. Okay, so let's see, what are the things that they are asking us to give up here? Can you take out your pads and tell us some of the things that have been listed here that you have to give up? How many? Okay, how many are there in count? 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10? How many things they're asking you to give up here? All right, give up 4, says Varshana Mataji, and she's right. Okay, and what are those 4 now? What are the 4 things they're asking you to give up? So, Varshana Mataji, what kind of desires they're asking you to give up? What can you qualify? What sort of desires we are talking about? If you look at the verse, what does the verse say? Precisely, yes, Vaishnava Mataji, for sense gratification, right? Which is a material desire. So in the verse, it says the person who has given up all desires for sense gratifications and who lives free from desires, right? No desires, giving up the sense of proprietorship, you mentioned that, and you don't have any false ego. So this is the formula for attaining real peace. Everything else is not peace. Everything else is a temporary situation. It's a temporary situation. It's not going to stay there forever. We might think that we get some peace when certain things agitate us and bother us and trouble us. We said, okay, I want to have some peace. Now, can you tell me some of the things that we do other than these 4 that you listed, which is the formula for peace? Can you tell me what are some of the other things that we do to get peace? Some other, or you have seen others do some of the other things to get peace. When they are agitated, when they're having some trouble, what do they do? Virabhav Mataji says they go to sleep. Very nice. Okay. Yes. mm. Okay. Yes, they listen to music, they chant the holy name, they meditate, they walk, they just chant. Okay. What else do they do? People in general. Jana. They go to sleep, huh? They eat. Yes. They overeat. Mm. Mm. Right? So we might think that I am having a lot of trouble, and so let me go to sleep. And I go to sleep. And then what happens in the sleep? When you're troubled, what happens in your sleep? You have dreams, says Meera Mataji, right? So those thoughts don't leave you, because what is a dream? Dream is a thought, right? The mind is presenting while you are in the sleeping state, right? So you continue to be disturbed in your sleep. There are dreams that will disturb you. And even if you don't, by the way, the mind is never muted, Meera. It is always active. Mind never goes to sleep. The intelligence goes to sleep, but mind is always active. Yeah, only in deep states of sleep will the mind, lull down a little bit. And then, of course, when the mind is completely situated, yeah. So some people will close themselves in a room where nobody can nobody can bother them, right? And in this context, there's this very interesting story of a guru and his young disciple. They were walking from one village to another village, and so it was monsoon seasons, and they didn't realize that there was a stream that they would have easily crossed during the summers. But since this was autumn, so there was rainy season, so there was a lot of rains, and the stream had become pretty wide and deep. And so when they went there to cross, there was a beautiful young lady, all dressed in white, and she had white flowers and looking almost like a one kanya and things like that. And she was standing there and she was looking at the water because she could not cross over. And besides, she was wearing all the clothes and all, so she would have, everything would have been dirtied if she walked inside the stream. So both this spiritual master and the young man, they are there. And the young man, just doesn't even look at the women, that lady, because he just throws a glance and then starts looking straight forward. And he crosses the river very quickly and goes over to the other side, wants to separate from this lady as soon as possible. And then he turns around to see where his spiritual master is, and he sees that the spiritual master is actually carrying that lady in his hands and wading through the water, and brings her to the other side and sets her down and the master and disciple continue to walk. And they walk for about 1 mile, 2 miles, or 3 miles. And all those 3 miles, this young man's mind is completely agitated. And he's just saying that, look at my spiritual master. He preaches something and he does something else. He has asked me to stay away from ladies, but look at this. And the first opportunity came for him to touch a young woman. He jumped at that opportunity, carried her in there. What was the need? I just turned my face away and I went like that. And look at this. And what am I doing? Why have I dedicated my life to such a robe? So he's going on, and this happens for a couple of miles. And at one point, he just can't contain it any longer. And he bursts out to his spiritual master. Like, you are a cheat, you're a liar, you're a rogue. And the spiritual master is bewildered, and he says, well, why do you say that, my dear disciple? Why are you saying it? Why are you throwing such accusations at me? And then he says, well, that lady, you carried her, and she was in such close proximity to you. You know what? And she was so full of all those fragrant flowers. I can even smell those flowers right now. You did that. And then the spiritual master told him that, I just carried her across the river. My dear disciple, you are still carrying her. So going to the bathroom, hiding yourself in the bathroom is not going to help, because your mind is still there. You're carrying your enemy. So staying away, relocating is what you did. Right? I'm in this state, somebody in the room is agitating me, let me go to the bathroom. Well, and lock myself up, which is not a bad strategy, actually, because you are putting that barrier between you and that person, and that will prevent you from doing something further damaging. So that's, it might be a good strategy, but what I'm saying is, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get peace when you do that. Because you carry that, the insult and the thoughts, right? Everything. So there's a song, right? Mere sang sang aaya, teri yadon ka rela. So it comes with you, all these thoughts, all these things, they keep on coming with you. So yes, and then once it comes, then you can keep on harping on, you can contemplate on two things. Yes, Varshana Mataji, you can contemplate on the fact that I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong, and the other person got agitated, so I went out. And most of the times, it's the other person who's wrong. And so it can, it gives you time to contemplate on why that reaction, by that behavior, or why something like that happened, right? So we have to remember this, that relocation will not be a solution for you, right? We have to find a solution, and that solution has to come from inside, because the botheration is also coming to us from inside. Okay, so let's go and see further what Prabhupada tells us in this verse, in the purports. And I'm reading that, and I'll put the purport here really high so it shows up there for you. And so Prabhupada says that to become desireless, right? And you said nihesprehaha is the word for to become desireless. And he says that to become desireless, but this is the sweetest thing. If becoming desireless was something that was bothering you, and you just thought that, how I can be desireless. And the other day we were talking about, no thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts. And we said, well, that's also a thought. Similarly, saying that, I don't want to have any desire. I don't want to have any desire is also a desire, like that, right? So to become desireless, Prabhupada says, does not mean it means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna consciousness is actually desirelessness. Desire for becoming Krishna conscious. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself, and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense gratification, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Real desirelessness is desire for the satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna, Ishavashyam idam sarvam, and therefore he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self realization, namely, knowing perfectly well that every living entity is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and that the eternal position of the living entity is therefore never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So today we get the peace formula. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself, and based on what you heard, share your reflections, your questions, and or your comments, and let's see how it goes. You can raise your hand so that we can bring you in a systematic order, and you can use the computer the Zoom facility to raise the hand so that I can see. It was a very nice purport, and Krishna gave us such a nice formula, and Prabhupada elaborated on that formula there. So let's see. Any thoughts, any ideas, any questions that you have? I'll be happy to address those for you. And is something coming up on the chat? Let me see. I had removed the chat. Where is my chat? Can I see it? Okay, chat appeared here. And so, Shraddha-devi, Dasi Mataji, and you all can unmute yourself and speak. So go ahead, Shraddha Mataji. I think you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Can
Mataji, here is written to understand one's actual position as eternal servitor of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Can you kindly little elaborate on this?
Okay, I'll take comments from others. What did others understand from that? Anybody else? Meera, okay, you want to say something? Go ahead. While we are addressing Vaishana Mataji's problem, and I'm just bringing that up here, Vaishana, for you so that you can share your concerns in this thing.
Well, for me, what really stood out was real desirelessness is desire for the satisfaction of Krishna and not the artificial attempt to abolish desires. Especially that second part really artificial attempt to abolish desires won't happen unless it's replaced by Krishna consciousness.
Right. And if you go through that motion of like, okay, I desire to eat gulab jamuns, and I artificially try to repress that, and I say, okay, I don't want to eat gulab jamuns, I don't want to eat gulab jamuns. Guess what? You're thinking about gulab jamuns all the time. And the pain will be too much. The pain will be too much to bear. And I can relate from my own experience, which is very, very fresh hand, very, very fresh and first hand. And that is this last Sunday we had Gaura Purnima. And we had a very nice initiation ceremony in the morning. And then prior night also we had a lot of that. So I had not slept nicely. And the next day it was fasting. And our temple was open for a short period of time. So I had also gone there to the temple and come back. So I was literally exhausted when I came back home. And then of course there was an evening program. And I was feeling so hungry, like I had never felt so hungry ever before. And normally on fasting days, nothing much happens, I mean, fasting or fasting, right? But, the drive to the temple, coming back and this and that. And so I was just miserable that, I have to wait for 2 more hours before I can eat anything. And then, of course, the program started. And as the program was starting, like I was half mind was here, half mind was there, because I was seriously, body was giving me serious trouble. And then like 2 hours into the program, I suddenly realized that, what happened? What happened? Like I was no longer hungry. I was completely immersed in the kirtan and the abhishek that happened and the lecture. And then of course there was fundraising, which was, I was completely, so, something else got replaced. The stuff in the mind got replaced by something else. And that's why we say that, Vishaya vinivartante nir aharasya dehina. So there's a nir there also, nir aharasya dehina. Dehina means one who is embodied, has got a material body. It's very difficult for the person to give up. These rasavarjam rasopyasya. If somebody says don't do it, then the desire to do that is still there. But rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartante. But when you get a higher taste, then the lower taste vanishes. Like in my case, the lower taste was, I need food at this time. If you don't get food, you will die. Like that. But then that got replaced by, getting this Krishna Katha and, enjoying the taste of the nectar of the Krishna Katha that was, coming from the temple. So that was a immediate replacement and had an immediate effect on it, right? So yes, very, very good point. And then to go back to Varshana Mataji's question there, and I'm going to share the screen really quickly so that you can all see which part of the verse she was referring to. And let me, I think I'm sharing it. And if not, then now you can loudly say no. Or a yes. Can you?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Good. So I'll read. To become desireless means, thank you. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, without claiming this material body to be oneself and falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness, right? Vaishana Mataji, just to make sure that I got the right this is the one you want to elaborate on, right? And go deeper. Is this the part? Vaishana Mataji,
Yes, Mataji.
Right. Okay. So here are certain things that Prabhupada is telling us, right? And let us see what happens otherwise, right? This verse was full of me, right? No, me, nirangara, nirmama, nispriha, right? The 3 needs are already mentioned there, give up all desires for sense gratification. So now let's see, why do we want to do sense gratification? If there's a desire, right? And then to fulfill that desire, we make use of this body, right? So we make use of this body. And then, and why do I enjoy? If a rasgulla is put inside a body, it's put on a tongue, why do I, as the soul, why do I enjoy it? Any thoughts? That, if I put something nice in my mouth, why do I enjoy it? Why does the enjoyment come? Why do you think?
I like it.
That desire is there, but why do you enjoy it? Why does the enjoyment?
Because you identify with the body?
Yes, correct, for 200 points. Because you think that you are this body. And that is the root cause. So I think I'm this body. So something bitter is put on my tongue. I suffer something hot, something cold, and I enjoy it, this way or that. So that is why this verse is also telling you about the root cause. It is telling you, give up the false ego. Give up the fact that you are this body. Okay. Now let's see that because you think that you're this body, what else? What are the other things that happen? What are some of the other things that happen because you think that you're this body? Apart from, you enjoy things, right? You put things on your tongue, you see something, you hear some music, right? Those were some of the examples that you gave on trying to get peace, right? So, yeah.
Do you think you're the proprietor? You think you're the proprietor?
Of what?
Of maybe your car, your family, your house. If you think you're the enjoyer?
Yes. When you enjoy something, When you enjoy something, then you also want to own it. This is mine. I enjoy it. This is my wife. She's mine. This is my husband. Nobody should talk to him like that, right? This is mine. So because of this false ego, this aham and mameti, right? Me and mine. So who are the mine? What is it? Who are the mine that we have? The biggest mine that we think?
Children.
That's children. There you go. Me and mine. My children, my wife. And it extends, right? So this is the false ego is extending. You're thinking these are my children. And we heard the story of Chitraketu, who came back from dead and asked his father, which father are you talking about? I've got millions of fathers in my millions of births, right? What are you talking about, right? So that is the reality. I mean, look at us also, right? We also had so many parents. So it comes from so from the false ego comes this fact that, I am enjoying, right? And then I have got this mameti, right? This is my proprietorship. It belongs to me and I'm going to enjoy it, right? And that's what Arjuna was saying, that even after all these people die and then I own this whole universe, what am I going to enjoy? He's talking about enjoyment. He's talking about ownership. And he's talking about what will I do if my dear ones are not there? They are all dead, right? So again, that me concept is still going on there. And that's why Krishna is telling this thing to Arjuna, with me and mine. So all those things have to be removed. And you have to remember there's no me and mine. It is not that things belong to me. I have to understand my real position. And that is that I belong to Krishna. It's a complete turn over, It's not that I have this and I have that and I have this. Buddy, you belong to somebody and he is the proprietor. Isha vasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita. Right? So it says that Isha Vasyam, he's the owner of everything. Krishna is the Isha, controller also of everything. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. So whatever has been set aside for you as your quota, that's all that you should, take. And don't covet other things that others have got, right? So once you get into that situation, right, Vaishana Mataji, I'm just saying that is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. And we have not reached that stage. But the good thing is that we are on the road that will lead us to that stage. Right? So every now and then we might get, this is my son, this is my body, and he said this and he said that, right? And as you trace this thing back to the false ego that we have, that I am this and I'm that. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this person's wife, this person is my husband, and all that. All our miseries actually come from there. All the miseries. You can sit down and list, tonight or this morning, depending on which part of the world you are, you can sit down and list all the miseries and then try to see what is the cause. It'll all come to false ego all the time. All right. So then who raised the hand next after Vaishana Mataji? I'll have to go in the order in which they appeared. So Meera already said, and I see Vindhyavali Mataji there. She has a hand raised, but I don't know whether she's here. She's there. Okay. Vindhyavali Mataji, you wanted to share something? And Vaishana, if you're done, then you can lower your hand so that I'm not confused. Okay. So Vindhyavali Mataji, okay, she switched off the video. So we'll move to Sadhana Mataji in the interest of time, and we'll come back to Vindhyavali when she's ready.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I'm having bandwidth problems, so I won't go on video. Okay.
Okay.
So my question is, I think that we are not the proprietorship is sort of straightforward. My mother always said that we came into the world with nothing and we go with nothing, not even our children. But then having said that, the answer to that is that everything is Krishna's, but we are actually stewards of his things, right?
Yes.
And so we are also the stewards of the children, even though they're not ours. And so we're still supposed to treat them as he would, and still look after them, and we still have that duty.
Yes.
And so we still have, in a way, it's an indirect attachment. That it's the responsibility is still like there, and it means that there's things that we have to make choices about all the time in order to do that, especially as mothers. So it's not as straightforward unless we say that, unless we look at the world and say, I'm looking after my children for the benefit of Krishna and teaching them right things, right? Which we can do to a certain degree, but even then, they are governed by what's happening in the exterior world, because we're not with them all the time. So I mean, there's certain limits. We are just not in a position to be that 100%, I don't think, you know. So that was my thoughts.
Yes, and those are excellent thoughts, and we have to keep in mind, one thing we have to keep in mind is that what this verse is talking about and what we think about attachment to our children. And so when we say that, a person might just say that, these are my children, I'm the mother. And one of the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam says that, Guru na syat, Tajano na syat, Pita na syat, Tyajani na cha syat. So it says that, it goes on. It is listing that, who are the people who do not take on these kind of responsibilities. And says that, if you cannot deliver your dependents on the path of repeated birth and death, then a person should not become either a spiritual master or a father or husband, or a worshipable person or a demigod like that. So, so it is our duty to take care of our kids and to bring them into Krishna consciousness. Now, and why am I bringing them? Because they're my children. Well, when we say that, I'm taking care of them, that because they are Krishna's child, then we also have to see that Krishna has other children also, right? And so our behavior towards others should also be the same. So I should also be putting some attention, bringing up others in Krishna consciousness. Yes, of course, there'll be some immediate duties that you have, like you have to cook for your kids. You don't have to cook for all the kids in the block. They have their own parents and things like that. But it extends the boundaries a little bit. It loosens the boundaries, and we step out of that. And that is what, makes our consciousness become bigger, right? Consciousness becomes bigger. And then we become like the ocean, which does not get disturbed by the, incessant flow of rivers that come from here and there. Mm-hmm. So when we are talking about nirmama, that's what we are talking about. And I remember this was a story which horrified me when I was a young kid, when I was reading this. It came in one of those books that you read from for kids. And so it talked about that there was a lady, she had a child, and then some playmate came to play with them, and they had something to eat, and then it went. And as soon as the playmate went away, her own child started throwing up very badly, very stomach upset, throwing, and they had to bring in the doctor, hang some liquid, things like that. And so then they were just wondering, like, what happened? So what did the child eat? So the child ate some sweet rice. And then, so the mother kept quiet, and everything was over. The child came back to, normal. And the next day, the mother asked the child that, so I had served sweet rice to you and to your friend. And so which, katori, bowl did you eat from? Mm. The child said, Mom, you had given me the bigger bowl, and to my friend you gave the smaller bowl. So, we interchanged. I gave the bigger bowl to my friend, and I took the smaller bowl myself. And the mother went like this, and she said, there was leftover sweet rice, and there was fresh sweet rice. I had given to the friend, and I had given you the fresh one. Why did you have to interchange it, right? So people do that. I mean, at your level, Sadhana, you might not think like that, but the world.
No, I've heard of cases. I've heard of that. Yeah, I see what you mean. But no, you certainly, I mean, certainly looking after children and treating them like they were Krishna is kind of like a big golden rule. You don't offend children. Yeah, don't. That's not a. Yeah. So no, I see. Okay, thank you.
So these were, they go and talk about that. So good. And then Vindhyavali Mataji, are you ready to talk?
Yes, Mataji. That's what I just wrote it something, but even Brahma Vimochan Leela, Brahma felt like that. And when he went to Vishnu and he said, I'm forehead Brahma, I'm Brahma here. And that gatekeepers, they said, no, you cannot. Then he said, no, I'm forehead Brahma. Which Brahma? I have a forehead Brahma. So he was thinking that I am this and I'm going, and that's what I got in thought.
Very good. Yeah, very good thing. Yeah. And if you remember, so ego in the real world, in the material world, when we talk about ego, we talk about ego there also, right? Of course, here we talk about false ego. So ego basically means I am something, right? And I'm right. That's also an ego. I'm always right. That's also an ego. So So ego means I am. And the false ego is that, you are thinking I am something, but you're thinking you are the wrong thing. You're thinking I am the body, right? And then everything from there, everything starts from there. So this pride and ego, we also talked about pride and ego, dambho darpo abhimanascha, right? You remember? Prakritim asuraha, remember? Chapter number 16, when we're talking about demon and demonic qualities, which was your favorite chapter for all of you. We spent so much of time there. so that is, Devin Prakriti Ashritaha. So it talked about the good and it talked about the bad, asurim, right? So this ego, and of course it's in the wrong place, is definitely a bad situation there. So give up, we have to give up all this. We have to give up all this. And the only way to give up all this is to replace this desires with a much better high quality desire. Replace our relationships with better relationships, right? And I mean, people, when people come and talk about they can't sleep in the night, if you do seva, you sleep better. You start chanting, it has its effect on it. They will start to sleep better. So whenever we are distressed, always make sure that we have a little prayer before we go to sleep, right? And if you think of Vishnu, really earnestly in the night, then the next morning when you wake up, you'll think of Vishnu. It'll take a little while for the other thoughts to come. They do come, but first thought that will come will be Vishnu. Okay, we have Aruni and we have Archana then.
My question might sound very basic, but I'm just thinking, you said we experience the senses because we identify with the body, but then why, we have been released into the body, then why did Krishna release these souls into the Maya? I mean, we are supposed to experience, whatever we experience through the senses, right? So why should we, I mean, we are in the body. So yes, we should know the distinction that we are not completely the body. I mean, we are not, the body is not everything. We are in the body. The soul is in the body, but the body is just, we're just renting. It's just a place that we rent. But why should we not experience whatever we do experience with the various senses? I mean, is that not why we're here? We're here to identify with the body because that's why each of us are in the individual bodies.
Yes, it is. And that is the reason the false ego is created. The purpose of the false ego is to make you think that you're the body and then try to enjoy in this body without getting connected to Krishna, and to get that experience of what it means to try to enjoy without Krishna in the picture. And when you get miserable, 1 lifetime or 20 million lifetimes, at some point in time, the little bird on the tree of this body will turn towards Krishna.
So what was the reason for that? Was that because, was that just Krishna's Leela, or was it because, I mean, why did Krishna find the need to release the souls into the Maya?
Because we were refusing to obey to him in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, and that's what this verse says, that you have to find out your constitutional position, that you are the servant of Krishna. It's not that things belong to you. You're not the controller. You're a little controller because you are part of parts of Krishna, but you're not the supreme controller. So in the spiritual realm, some of the souls, they are rebellious. We are the rebellious souls. We are rebellious, and we said, why should I serve Krishna? I am also spiritual. I want to enjoy on my own. It's like, all right, I'm going to create something for you where you're going to enjoy. So this material world is actually a prison. If you look at the universe, the description of the universe, it is actually a fortress. It is a prison. You can't get out of here. The body also is a prison. We can't just walk out of this body. We are placed here to go through and experience whatever is there, and that experience actually purifies us. And that's why this verse is also talking about that relocation, and I was talking about to Vashana Mataji, that relocation is not a solution. So if I say I'm going to relocate from this body and go to another body, birth, death, old age, and disease will be there everywhere. Mamaka will be there everywhere. Like even a little kitten, a little cat, knows this is my kitten, this is mine. So that mamaka is there everywhere. To enjoy is there everywhere. Whatever type of body that you are. That's the bad situation that we are in. But together with that, Krishna has also given us the Shastra so that we can read and decode this material world and get out of here, find out the key on how do we get out. So the good thing is that we have found the book that's going to get us out. For millions of years, we didn't have that book. Now we got the book. Books, actually, in English now.
So while we're delving into the deeper knowledge and the mysteries of the universe and the path to Krishna, there is nothing wrong with also enjoying what the senses have to offer within certain boundaries, right?
Yes, but you have to involve Krishna in it. Don't we enjoy? We enjoy a lot, right? The Hare Krishnas enjoy a lot. They eat food, they sing, they dance, right? But everything is connected to Krishna. So we'll get up early in the morning at 4:30 and we'll dance. So we are saying, don't go to the disco, gulp down some alcohol and then dance. You want to dance? Come, 4:30 in the morning, come to the temple, dance with Krishna, dance for Krishna to please him. And you get the same joy, right? As you see people jumping so high while they're dancing because of the joy that is there. So it's not that enjoyment is prohibited. Get a better taste, the higher taste, right? That's what we have the book. The cookbook is called Higher Taste.
Oh yeah, I got that book. I made several. I keep cooking from that book.
There you go. Yeah, so you're allowed. But offer it to Krishna first. Have that connection. And once you have that connection with Krishna, that is Krishna conscious life. And you're fine. And then, it's not that people who are in Krishna consciousness are poor and they live in poverty, Daridra and all that, but absolutely says no. Actually, when you see the opulence of the big devotees, that those opulences are actually coming, they are specially given by Krishna to them. So sometimes you might just wonder, how come in Silicon Valley you have got some devotees, they live in such palatial houses and they are working for Google and they're in such a big position, but still they have got so much of spare time to dedicate to Krishna consciousness. How does that happen? Krishna arranges that for them so that they can do Krishna conscious activities. So it's not that we say don't go for opulences. Don't mindlessly go for opulences. You stay and wait patiently. Krishna will automatically give. And the beauty of that is that even if you don't want it, you get it. Krishna will give. Sudama, the famous pastime, he didn't go there to ask for anything, but he gave. Dhruv Maharaj, you were saying, no, I don't want. Right? He still gave. Prahlad Maharaj was smart. That Narsingham, they tried to give him this and that, said no, I don't want. So it's not that Krishna doesn't give, Krishna gives. Right? And Krishna, yeah. So there's no harm in enjoying things, but as long as the connection is maintained with Krishna. And I'll go to Archana now for the last question because I'm way over 8 o'clock only. I'm crossing.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji, then would pranam. Mataji, like in today's verse, Krishna is instructing us to give up the material desires. So if we have spiritual desires, it is also a desire. So will that be okay to have a spiritual desire, like, to have the darshan of the Lord or to attain the love of God? It's a spiritual desire, but just that we are just drifting the material desire onto the Krishna. So, but it is still a desire. So will that be okay in that case?
The very second sentence, it is okay. The very second sentence in the purport says, I'm reading for you. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. The desire to be Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness, right? Now, anybody watching this on Facebook and also on Zoom simultaneously, anybody has got that? I know that sometimes you all do that. The topic for today's class actually is what is desirelessness. That's the topic. What exactly is desirelessness? When you desire things for Krishna, that is real desire. Because what they're asking you to do is to give up the material desires. And that's why it says that even if these material desires crop up, like what if I in the middle of the night, I want to have a gulab jamun, I'm sitting at home, right? And I really can't control it. Okay, then, open that dibba, whatever it is, but offer it to Krishna, at least mentally. because Krishna could be sleeping at that time. At least mentally offer. So involve Krishna in all your activities. Offer it to Krishna first. I don't eat any gulab jamun that has not been offered to Krishna. So I'm curtailing my enjoyment and connecting it to Krishna like that. So yeah, desire to become a devotee is fantastic. Now, to be a devotee of Krishna, but as a devotee progresses in devotional service, what the devotee is supposed to give up are thoughts like, I want to be the best devotee of Krishna. Right? It seems on the surface it might look like it's such a wonderful desire. I want to become the best devotee of Krishna. What exactly am I doing? Is it completely a pure desire? No, it's like I want to be the best compared to all the other devotees. You stay behind, I'm the best. So there's that I thing that I am the best, right? And then on the other hand, I'm the most fallen, right? The most fallen devotee. We can go to the other end, swing the pendulum on the other direction. I'm the most fallen of all the devotees. And Prabhupada once said, you are most fallen nothing. Because the moment you say I am, you are. So I'm neither the best, neither the worst. I'm just das, anudasa. That's what I want to do. And understand my position like that of serving Krishna. Okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji. So helpful.
You're welcome. And having said that, I'll take your leave today. Tomorrow, no class. It's Wednesday. We'll resume on Thursday, Krishna willing.
Thank you so much.
Kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyo
Patitanam pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namaha.
Thank you so much, Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you so much, Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so
Mataji.
much, Mataji.
Hey,
Thank you,
I
Thank
got
you.
a little glimpse of Neil behind you, Sukumal Mataji. Hey, Neil.
I thought we'll see you at the temple, but we didn't. We don't know what time you
We missed. Yeah, I had a 3:45.
Oh, we had a 1:30.
Okay. Yeah, 1:30 was not possible because of the initiation, right? I didn't know when it would open.
Yeah.
I was there at 3:20, I think 3:20 at the time.
Yeah, we missed it. Yeah, we missed each other then. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Thank
I was
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.